Hello, this is Mark from exceloffthegrid.com. In this video, we're looking at the RANDARRAY function. There's no example file for this one because most of the time we'll be starting with a blank worksheet. So fire up Excel and let's get started. Before we go any further, I'd just like to remind you to subscribe and get notifications so that you don't miss any future videos. The RANDARRAY function makes use of changes to Excel's calculation engine. These changes enable a single formula to spill results into multiple cells. The regular RAND function calculates a single random number, which is greater than or equal to 0, but less than 1. The RANDARRAY function calculates a random number in the same way, but we can specify the number of rows, columns, minimum and maximum, and also the rounding that should be applied to those random numbers. Now at the time of recording this, the RANDARRAY function is only available to those on Microsoft 365. It will not be available in Excel 2019 or earlier versions. Okay, let's start here on example 1 and we'll look at a really basic example of the RANDARRAY function. Here in cell B2, I'm going to type equals RANDARRAY, open bracket, so we can see all the arguments there, but I'm just going to put a 4 for the rows, close that bracket and press return. And there you see we have 4 random numbers. And those random numbers are all greater than or equal to 0, but less than 1. We'll come back to this in a few seconds. We're just going to go and look at the arguments of the RANDARRAY function first. So RANDARRAY has 5 arguments. There's the rows argument. That is the number of rows of random numbers to return. If this argument is excluded, it will automatically default to 1. Columns is the number of columns of random numbers to return. Again, if excluded, it will default to 1. Min is the lowest number that we want to be returned, and if excluded, it will default to 0. So max is the highest number to be returned, and if excluded, it will default to being just less than 1. Then the 5th argument is integer, where we can enter a true or a false. If we enter true, it means we want whole numbers, and if we enter false, it means that decimal numbers are allowed. All of these arguments are optional, which means we can use RANDARRAY without any arguments at all, and if we do that, it will just create a single random value. One attribute to be aware of is that RANDARRAY is a volatile function. This means it will recalculate every time a cell anywhere on the workbook changes. So if you've used RAND before, you'll be aware of this functionality. This won't be new to you. Right, let's head back to example 1. Okay, here in cell D2, let's type equals RANDARRAY, open bracket, and this time I want 4 rows and 3 columns. Close that bracket and press return. And there we have an array of 4 rows and 3 columns filled with random numbers. Okay, let's head over to example 2. So here in example 2 I have a list of names, and the goal here is to sort these names into a random order, which means that here in cell D3 I'm going to enter the following formula. So let's start with RANDARRAY, open bracket. Now I don't want to count the number of names that I've got, so I'm going to use the COUNTA function. COUNTA, open bracket, and I'll select those names there. Close that bracket, close the RANDARRAY. So when I press return, I'll get a list of random numbers that's the same length as the number of names I have in that list. So all I have to do now is wrap a sort by function around that, and I want to sort those names again. So cells B3 to B10, and then to a comma, and I'll close off that entire function. Press return, and now our names are displayed in a random order. Now if I were to change any cell in my worksheet, so this one for example, as you can see each time the function will recalculate with a new set of random names. Okay, let's have a look at example 3. In example 3, we're going to look at how we can use all of the arguments of the RANDARRAY function. So here in cell B2, I'm going to type equals RANDARRAY, open bracket. So the first argument is rows, so I'm going to say I want 4 rows, 3 columns, a minimum value of 50, a maximum value of 150, and I just want whole numbers, so I'll enter true. I'll close that bracket and press return. And there we have it. We have numbers between 50 and 150, which are all whole numbers in 4 rows and 3 columns. Finally, let's look at example 4. So example 4 is to demonstrate how RANDARRAY replaces RAND and RANDBETWEEN, which are the existing functions we have for creating random numbers. So there in cell B2, we could use the RAND function, and we would get a single random number. But as I said, RANDARRAY now replaces that function. So instead of RAND, we can type RANDARRAY, and we get one single value. So both RAND and RANDARRAY, when used without any arguments, provide a single random number. Over here in cell D2, if we had the RANDBETWEEN function, so RANDBETWEEN asks for a bottom number and a top number. So if I said a bottom number of 10 and the top number of 20, I would get a random whole number between 10 and 20. Now RANDARRAY can also replace this function. So I'm going to type equals RANDARRAY, open bracket. So I don't want any rows or any columns. My minimum would be 10, my maximum would be 20, and I want a whole number, so I'll type true. And then press return. And there we have a whole number between 10 and 20. Well, that's it from me. I hope this video gave you a good example of how to use the RANDARRAY function. If you like this video, don't forget to subscribe, like and comment, and I'll catch you next time.